A modern-day exodus. Hundreds of thousands of Rwandan refugees stream across the border into Zaire. And a shattered comet begins its much-anticipated collision with the planet Jupiter. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting good evening. The scenes along Zaire's border tonight with Rwanda are unlike anything perhaps that's been seen thus far in the 20th century. Over the last few days, at least 400,000 people, some of them wounded, many of them sick, all of them trying to get away from Rwanda's civil war, have poured across the border and have settled around the town of Goma in Zaire. Refugee agencies are doing what they can, but with a shortage of drinking water and little for the people to eat, no one is quite sure what is going to happen. And to make matters even worse, an active volcano is bubbling nearby. We have an extraordinary report tonight from the scene from Jeremy Thompson of Great Britain's Sky News.
There were columns of refugees as far as the eye could see. The tragic tide of humanity was unceasing. For a third day, desperate, frightened Rwandans poured across the border into Zaire, thousands every hour. They carried and dragged what remained of their lives. Many dropped from sheer exhaustion and relief within yards of the frontier post at Goma. Some had walked barefoot for weeks, driven on by the advancing army of the Patriotic Front, until there was nowhere else to go. Civilians and government soldiers were forced to drop their weapons by the Zaire authorities. Huge piles of pangas, guns, even bows and arrows, the instruments of genocide. Almost 500,000 have crossed into Goma, and there are at least 500,000 more to come. A humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. Relief planes began shuttling in supplies to feed the hungry, but the numbers and the needs are overwhelming the aid effort. The refugees had already turned Goma into one vast squatter camp. In line with their humanitarian mission, French troops drove into Rwanda to rescue 160 orphans, lost and fearful children stranded in Gisenyi, until now the last stronghold of the Hutu-dominated government army. But along the way, hundreds of government soldiers clearly evacuating the town, putting up little resistance. The rampant Patriotic Front was closing in fast on their enemy. Soon government troops were crossing into Zaire, though one colonel claimed they hadn't given up the fight. You will return to
Yes,
fight?
I will return.
So the war is not finished?
No, not yet. Not yet. It continues.
But nearby in Goma town, a very different picture. The one-time butchers of Rwanda in blood-stained retreat. Many of the government soldiers had terrible injuries. Their blown-off limbs badly dressed at the battlefront as they waited for treatment at a field hospital. Their fighting days were clearly over. It now seems that the fall of Rwanda to the Patriotic Front is imminent, and that leaves these hundreds of thousands of refugees with little option but this flight into exile and a future of uncertainty. Jeremy Thompson, Sky News for CBS on the Rwanda border.
The White House announced tonight that the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Brian Atwood, is headed for Rwanda to see what can be done. CBS News correspondent Mark Phillips has been in Rwanda recently, and he joins us tonight from our London bureau. We'll talk about what can be done in a moment. But first, Mark, do you think there was any way that this could have been avoided?
In hindsight, it's difficult to say, but clearly at the time, there was nothing that any outside government could have or would have, perhaps more to the point, have done to rectify this situation. You have to remember the context in which this happened. This is a small country, far away, that not many people have heard of, with an almost unfathomable internal crisis. It also, for the Rwandese, had the very unlucky happenstance of coming right after the international experience in Somalia, and for that matter, the experience in in Bosnia, both situations where international efforts were not used to great effect. So bad luck for them. It's really tough to say in hindsight what could have done that could have changed things.
Well, you know, seeing these extraordinary pictures tonight, which are so overwhelming, it's easy to forget that this is only a part of it, because before this exodus happened, at least 200,000, perhaps 500,000 people were killed in this fighting. I think another unusual thing, Mark, it is very difficult in this to figure out who the good guys and the bad guys are. Is there a way to separate that out?
Well, no. It's also important to look at this back beyond the 2 or 3 months that this particular chapter in this conflict has been underway with these pictures that we've been seeing on TV. This is a conflict that goes back decades and even centuries. This is rooted in deep ethnic animosity and deep social conflict between haves and have-nots in that part of Africa. The people now in the RPF who are moving with such efficiency through the country and forcing this evacuation ahead of them, this flight ahead of them, are the sons and daughters of people who themselves were forced to flee Rwanda during an earlier Hutu uprising a couple of decades ago. This is a big wheel of misfortune that just keeps turning and turning, and you have to look at it in that context.
And very quickly, the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development is headed there tonight. What can be done here as far as aid, do you think? Well,
obviously aid for the people, these hundreds of thousands of people who are in Zaire and in Tanzania as well. Don't forget the first hordes of refugees who fled the country. They need aid, they need it fast, or disease will be next. The question, of course, is whether this is too little and too late, and that we're going to have to see over the next weeks.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. Turning to another mess, delivering the Republicans' weekly Saturday radio address, Virginia Senator John Warner said today there is almost a war fever gripping Washington these days over what to do about Haiti. But he urged the president not to give in to it, and he said the United States does not have sufficient interest in Haiti to invade it and topple the military government there. The administration continues to say no invasion is imminent, but 17 U.S. warships with 2,000 Marines aboard continue to maneuver around Haiti. We're going to get more on the situation there now from Randall Pinkston.
Marines in Port-au-Prince were at work today, adding to fortifications at the American Embassy, just in case protection is needed. Although U.S. officials continue to insist an invasion isn't imminent, the Navy has assembled a 17-ship task force offshore, including a cruiser, a destroyer, and 2 frigates. Meanwhile, exiled President Jean-Bertrand Aristide began direct broadcasts from a U.S. military plane on Radio Democracy, predicting the day of his return is not far off. Promising an olive branch for his opponents, the exiled president said he will not accept any vengeance. Gauging reaction to Aristide's message was difficult. With bodies left in the streets almost every day, the climate of fear gripping Haiti restrains free speech. These days, the only public demonstrations are for the military rulers and their supporters. This rally was full of voodoo chants and rituals, threatening potential U.S. invaders with black magic. If we don't have weapons, this man said, we have what we need. We'll blow powder on them. Voodoo powder. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, Port-au-Prince.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the latest on the comet that is colliding with Jupiter. And tenors, anyone? 3 of the greatest prepare for tonight's biggest concert ever. Bill, it's Bob Schieffer.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good. Good. I hear you. Well, there's quite an event, a rare event underway in the skies tonight. Chunks of a shattered comet, some of which may be the size of a mountain, have begun slamming into the planet Jupiter. It is the first such collision that humans have ever been able to see, and scientists are vying for front row seats. Jacqueline Adams has our report.
The full-time residents of Sutherland, South Africa are much more interested in sheep than space, but that's where astronomers from around the world gathered today for the first best glimpse of a comet hitting a planet.
I'm afraid what we're seeing doesn't reveal anything at all.
Even before the first of some 21 comet chunks called Shoemaker-Levy 9 hit Jupiter this afternoon, Japanese researchers reported a sudden tenfold increase in radio emissions from the planet. The theory is that jump was triggered by the leading edge of comet dust interacting with Jupiter's magnetic field.
This comet is a klutz. It doesn't orbit the sun like most comets are supposed to. It orbits Jupiter. And it doesn't even do that right.
Still, David Levy, one of the comet's discoverers, is thrilled about the week-long show. But he, like most of the professional astronomers, is cautioning that the string of ice and dust pearls may not generate fireworks. After all, the comet's particles are quite small, and Jupiter is huge, 11 times the size of Earth. Experts say it would be like 21 grains of sand hitting a 6-foot person. And even worse for us here on Earth, the impact site is on the dark side of the planet.
The success of what happens doesn't depend on how good the special effects are. This is a fundamental event in the history of the solar system. We've never seen this before. We've never watched a comet hit a planet.
Some scientists believe that 65 million years ago, a meteor or maybe a comet struck the Earth and triggered the climatic catastrophe that killed off the dinosaurs. So if you were a dinosaur on Jupiter today?
Get away from the impact zones and bring along some canned goods.
Scientists will be looking for new clouds or ripples on Jupiter. But even if they witness no changes at all, they say the impact will still be worth watching, if only to see what no man has seen before. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, New York.
And joining us now with more on tonight's big collision, our CBS News space consultant, Bill Harwood. He's in Washington tonight. Bill, you've been covering the space program, I guess, for 20 years or so. All of us agree we've never seen anything quite like what they're expecting to see here. But the other part is nobody really knows what they are going to see. Why do you think there's such a debate over what will be seen and what we'll know from this?
Well, the real debate, Bob, is over how big these fragments are that are crashing into Jupiter at 130,000 miles per hour. Some of the estimates range from 2.5 miles across or so for some of the larger chunks down to really more minimal amounts. And of course that's critical because that's what's going to determine what visible effects might be in the atmosphere that we can see from Earth. It's been impossible to pin down the sizes very accurately because Jupiter's more than 500 million miles away. These are very small objects. So I think several days of photographing and studying and analyzing data is going to be required before the astronomers really know what's going on. So while the big show is finally here, so to speak, I think it's going to take several days to find out how big a hit it might be.
The big and the best view, I take it, is coming from the Hubble Space Telescope way out in space.
Well, that's certainly one of the best views. Of course, astronomers all around the world right now are pulling their hair out, I suppose, analyzing data to find out just what they got from the first impact earlier today. But NASA plans to release the first images from Hubble, post-impact images, later tonight. But I don't think anybody really expects anything terribly dramatic from these first few images. The first several fragments are quite small, it is believed, and any big guns that are out there, if they do in fact live up to expectations, aren't scheduled to hit until later next week.
Other than just the spectacular aspects of all this, what will really be learned from this, do you think?
Oh, I think quite a bit. I think if anything fizzles here, it's our expectations, not the comet. Nothing like this has ever been seen before, and comets and asteroidal impacts have played a huge role in the development of the solar system. The dinosaurs' mass extinctions in Earth's past may have been triggered by such impacts, and by studying what's going on in Jupiter, they may very well be able to refine their models of what happened in Earth's past and be able to predict better what might happen in the future.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill Harwood, our space consultant. By the way, at Cape Canaveral today, NASA officially celebrated the day 25 years ago when Apollo 11 lifted off on the first mission to land a man on the moon. It was 4 days later, July 20th, 1969, that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin took their historic first steps on the moon's surface. North Korea has delayed until Tuesday now the state funeral for dictator Kim Il-sung. The government says it wants to give mourners more time to pay their respects. But many overseas analysts believe the delay means that a power struggle is now underway in North Korea. Back in this country, the military is opening the door to a changing of the guard. Women, for the first time, are joining the ranks of one of the most exclusive units in the U.S. Army. Jim Stewart has our report.
It is the oldest unit in the Army, the Old Guard. For 210 years, only the best, only the brightest, but only men were invited to join. Until now.
Maybe I'll go down in history because I will be one of the first females.
Historic indeed. This week marked one of the first times the Army's ever allowed women to even apply for the Old Guard.
The Old Guard may not be for everyone, and the Old Guard is not for everyone. The stress factor is extremely high. We're in a high-pressure, high-visibility job. We are representing the United States Army.
It was a chance to join a unit that sees history in the making almost daily and traces its own all the way back to the post-revolutionary Indian Wars. It is the official escort to the president. It's that long blue line greeting foreign dignitaries. And it is the final escort for fallen heroes, known and unknown alike.
But despite its largely ceremonial functions here at Arlington National Cemetery, the Army always insisted that at heart the Old Guard was an infantry unit and therefore kept women out for years. It took an order by the Secretary of the Army to open things up, and the applications poured in.
Right now I'm kind of nervous because I know there's hundreds and hundreds of other people or soldiers out there that want to do this.
There was rigorous physical testing and one-on-one interviews.
Why do you want to come to the Old Guard?
Sergeants looked for that special something.
You can look in the eyes sometimes and tell the intensity of that they really want to come to the Old Guard. Some of their voices crack up. You might see a tear sometimes.
In the end, 3 were selected.
Congratulations. Hopefully we'll go down in history.
And this fall they'll begin training with the ultimate goal of one day belonging here, at the Tomb of the Unknowns. The first women in the first unit of the United States Army. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Arlington National Cemetery.
The Justice Department has announced an agreement with Microsoft Corporation ending a 4-year antitrust dispute. The settlement is supposed to change the way the computer software giant does business. We have more from Linda Tyra now.
Microsoft, the house Bill Gates built into the world's leading software company, was playing, according to the federal government, the biggest high-stakes personal computer game of all, Monopoly. The Justice Department was ready to take Microsoft to court for antitrust violations when the company agreed to end certain business practices.
While the company fairly and lawfully climbed to the top of the industry ladder, it used unfair and illegal practices to maintain its dominant position.
Under the settlement, Microsoft must change contracts that pressure computer makers to buy its software like DOS and Windows. And the company must end its restrictive deals with firms it hires to create computer programs. The government says the consumer will be the big winner.
So I think prices will immediately lower, and I think over the medium to long range, this will, I hope and believe, have profound market opening impacts.
Microsoft today denied any wrongdoing and defended its contracts with clients.
We found it to be very useful and very efficient, and we found it to be something that our customers liked. Pretty simple business.
Bill Gates got Microsoft into 80% of the world's computers. But as he told Connie Chung recently on Eye to Eye, he's not playing hardball.
In this business, all we do is put software in a box. It goes out into computer stores and people buy it and like it. That's it. That's all that goes on.
If Microsoft had not reached the 11th hour settlement, it would have been forced into a long and costly fight in the courts with potentially more damaging results, even perhaps a breakup of the software giant. Linda Tyra, CBS News at the Justice Department.
The Los Angeles Police Department has fired Officer Theodore Brasino for his role in beating motorist Rodney King. He was the last of the 4 officers involved to be thrown off the force. Brasino's testimony was used against 2 officers convicted in federal court of violating King's civil rights. Finally tonight, Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles is the scene for a big league spectacle that has nothing to do with baseball, but it does feature 3 heavy hitters from the world of opera. Sandra Hughes has our report.
Allegiance to these golden-throated tenors rivals the very event they will promote. Luciano Pavarotti.
I'm Italian and I hope, of course, for Pavarotti.
Placido Domingo.
When you hear Placido Domingo, you dare to expire.
And Jose Carreras. The 3 tenors, the biggest voices and probably egos in the opera world, have performed together in a major concert only once before. The 1990 performance in Rome was such a huge success that 2 years ago, when it was suggested the 3 sing again, no one blinked.
I would characterize this event as being more than an event, as a matter of fact. I think I would characterize it as being a phenomenon.
It's not just a highbrow social function. Tickets could be had for $15. They went up to $1,000. And the event will have an afterlife as a fundraiser.
The first program, after all, was the most successful fundraising program in the history of public television. And obviously, we've all got our fingers crossed, and we're hoping that that'll happen again.
Even though opera isn't exactly as American as baseball and apple pie, tonight it will come close. The stage is smack in the middle of center field at Dodger Stadium. More than $10 million is being spent to turn the American baseball stadium into a venue for an event which is distinctly European.
Dodgers played their last game on Sunday afternoon. We all prayed for no extra innings. We had 75 truckloads of equipment waiting while the crowd left, and then we took over at about 6 o'clock Sunday night.
All three of these huge opera stars are also huge soccer fans, so the fact that they are in Los Angeles in conjunction with the World Cup Championship is as perfect as a high C. But there are those who say it's more about profit than serious opera.
This is a circus. It might be a wonderful circus, and I don't have anything against circuses as long as we call them that. But it looks to me like 3 rings, 3 tenors.
European soccer fans live for circuses like this one. But just like soccer, many in this country just don't get what all the fuss is about.
I'm not too familiar with the opera, but
maybe after tonight he will be. The 3 tenors will be seen by a sold-out stadium and more than 1 billion people worldwide. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's the news. Tomorrow on Sunday morning, a look at NASA art, works inspired by the manned space program. Then on Face the Nation, we'll talk about health care reform, Haiti, and President Clinton, with the Republican leader in the Senate, Robert Dole. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
Experience CBS News.
With an eye on sports, it's Canada for a punishing test of endurance by World Cup triathletes, and Sweden for sheer speed and strength. Sunday on CBS.
This is CBS.